overall, it was 3 to 7 times the initial funding that was raised. And we think that's significant. When done well, catalytic capital can leverage significant financing. We have 331 billion, that's the old sort of gap, SME financing gap. And we want to deploy investments in ways that increase the supply of money, and that brings in capital into the SME sector that is doing other things, that is not just moving a small pot around. We need to fill that gap. We need to increase the supply of money, and catalytic capital can be an effective tool, but only if we design in a very purposeful way to actually accomplish that.
Some of you may know, if you don't, please check out a group or community called the C3 Consortium. Do any of you, all of you know about the C3 Consortium? Catalytic Capital Consortium. Please check them out. They're probably the leading global body that's driving the mobilization and deployment of catalytic capital. It consists of Omidyar, Rockefeller, MacArthur, and DFC are part of the founding members. And they've done some really cool stuff in promoting catalytic capital globally. Have you heard of the Zero Gap Fund? Okay, it's a Rockefeller fund. They've got some pretty good annual reports that they've produced that talk about how they deploy capital. One of my biggest, and a big chunk of actually the investment they've made, like Spark schools in South Africa, are on the continent. And then also if you do go to the C3 Consortium, you'll see the number of additional programs that are on the continent. And I don't know if you know this, but globally, Africa has the largest number of kind of blended finance deals that leverage catalytic capital. The challenge is they all are very much the big ticket size investments. Okay, the work we need to do is how do we bring that concept into the smaller ticket size investments for our SMEs. And that for me is an exciting opportunity that this presents. And that's why this particular conversation is very important. So in that context, let's talk about impact for a second. What kind of impact did this 10 that were tracked achieve? And how did they measure impact?
Great. So first let me give a plug to C3 because the study was paid for by the C3 Consortium. And so it's always great when catalytic capital also creates knowledge and helps us to understand so that when we're acting, it's based on data and we can have information. So in terms of the impact, the main impact was to unlock SMEs. But when we looked at the impact that was tracked, employment was one of the key things that was tracked. And a lot of the things that were tracked was around taxes. I'm trying to remember the exact numbers. I'm not a numbers person, so I have the report summary in front of me so that I don't give you wrong numbers. But they had unlocked 25%. They had 25% increased revenues in the SMEs. Employment was up 60%. And third-party investments was 3 to 7 times. Impact was not tracked consistently enough for us to aggregate numbers for other things, like improving livelihoods, because the metrics used were quite different. So we just sort of counted all the different impact areas. And so it was things like enabling access to financing. Some of the SME financing scheme had that as an impact goal, in addition to financing the SMEs, and some of them had improving livelihoods, some of them had skills training, etc. But for us, the biggest impact was that these businesses actually work, increase revenue, increase employment, and the fact that they deliver sustainable jobs. And I think the reason for that is what I said on the earlier panel. Africa's SMEs employ most of the people, and if what we want to grow is the same form of capitalism that has grown in other parts of the world, then we're not actually creating a solution. We need a new form of capitalism where small and medium enterprises see sustainability as a competitive advantage and see that there is a new world with new values that is going to compensate them for, or that is going to give them better returns, better customers, and cheaper investment funding, etc., because of the fact that they are sustainable business, because they have and they are able to deliver sustainable jobs, etc. And so that's a bigger question than just moving money. That's a values question. It's a question around regulations. It's a question about valuing impacts, and it's a broader sort of ecosystem developments that the NABs and organizations like AVPA are jointly working to ensure. We don't want capitalism the way it has developed to grow the same way in Africa's SME sector.
I'm going to come back to you in a short while about just what has this study and the outcomes meant for Ghana and the SME sector. But what I want to tell you is, please, if you have any questions, I'll be happy. I want to make this an engagement session. It's not just about you guys. I think if there's any curiosity arising from the questions and the conversations, please feel free. There's no room. But just in terms of what this has meant.
So when we do studies, we do it to get data to engage. And so the moment we're done with this study and all the way through when we're collecting data, we're engaging with asset owners in Ghana to be able to push them to act. So for example, for government, we're saying to government, you're deploying capital, can you deploy capital in ways that is more catalytic? The reality is that they have to, or they think they have to deploy capital in ways that are political because of the way election cycles work. But we're saying, let some of it be catalytic, and this is how the vehicles are designed. And so our government has made a commitment to $1 billion into SMEs. It's huge for a country our size. We're using this data to influence around the design of the vehicles that end up being funded. The second group of people we're trying to influence is international development. We're saying explore more innovation, explore ways in which you can come alongside catalytic vehicles, ways in which even if you can't deploy investment capital, can you deploy capital, can you do technical assistance and other structures, pay for performance, etc., in ways that enables third-party investments, and can we design flexibility into the instruments? The way we've done that is to actually let flexibility be one of the impact areas in the, you have these log frames that don't change, but if one of your outcomes, one of your activities is around learning and around change, and you design the activities to have breadth in their scope, then still sticking to the same log frame that you can't change after you have signed an agreement, you can still learn and grow, and the schemes that we saw that were successful were designed that way. And then finally, with our pensions, they were outright, we can't be catalytic, we're holding people's pensions, but we are able to, but they can be unlocked. And so having them understand catalytic capital has supported the design of a pension-backed fund of funds that is a blend of catalytic capital and pension funding.
I strongly believe that we're not short of money, short of risk capital. Money is not the problem. You look at the global financial markets at $430 trillion is way more than we need to solve our problems. What we don't have is to make that these investments, especially in like impacts, attractive for your private capital players. And that's the one thing we need to try and find. How can we build more capital? And it's been very interesting. So we have a sister network in Asia, and I've been to the last two conferences. The last one, Thailand and Indonesia and Malaysia. In both cases, where ministers come and address us, two things were common, and it was really strange. Both ministers had two themes on their slides that they presented to us. One, governments are now seeing themselves as catalytic investors, and they put on a slide. And two, they all had a skills plan for the population to take them for the next 10 years. They all had a plan.